became a star, a long-running star in what happened? What happened here? Hello? Okay, wow. All right, hey, listen, I apologize. I've been having some issues with the audio, and apparently I have been recording silently. Man. So when I'm in a remote location, sometimes I just don't have my equipment that I need. So let's start over. I apologize. We're about 23 minutes into this show. And I'm going to start from the top and get right back into it. This is Robert Phoenix, and I'm recording live to you from Texas in a remote location in the Hill Country. It's the 30th of October, and the last 20 minutes, and I'm going to have to edit this now, the last 20 minutes have been all about what's taking place on a public level as it relates to the dissemination of so-called truths. So what we're dealing with here is we're dealing with levels of quote-unquote exposure, levels of quote-unquote revelations, whether it comes from the sex side, the latest being with Kevin Spacey, or whether it's coming from Mueller and the indictment of Paul Manafort. We're now having to sift through these. In many ways, they're distractions. They're distractions that are keeping us from really going after the big whales of our society, our culture, and our relationship to the collective. But it's okay, because we can use these things as magnifying glasses and lenses that allow us to get a more sort of a microscopic relationship to what's going on, so that we can then expand it into a macroscopic relationship in how we live our daily lives. Now, again, what I was saying before I realized that there were some issues with the audio here, what I was saying is that the internet, in what we're getting at, or what we're attempting to get at, what we're sifting through, what we're connecting with, is essentially only a sliver of what we call the truth. The truth, in and of itself, has an impact to some degree inside of this medium, but it is not where the truth lies. Isn't that an interesting kind of oxymoron? Where the truth lies? No, where the truth lies, or where the truth exists, is inside of you. And the internet is a place where we're looking in some way, shape, or form to be able to connect something inside of ourselves with something that has a relationship to that. It's not even really outside of ourselves. If you really think about it, it's an extension of who we are, but it is not the ultimate extension of who we are. That would be a fallacy. So this is one of the things that I was talking about and actually weaving towards before I realized we'd have some issues with the audio here. And how I came about, or where this was all coming from, is I was talking about how Roger Stone has been banned from Twitter for life. And it's a really interesting kind of moment for Stone to be banned. It's like, well, why? Why was he banned? Well, because he's a gadfly. Now, you may not like Roger Stone, or you may like Roger Stone. I don't, to me, he's a character. He's a character with a capital C. The guy's a swinger. He's an eyes wide shut sort of dude. He's been to those parties. He's got all kinds of inside connections in that, sleazy underbelly DC world where sex is a commodity, sex is a power exchange, and he knows all about it. He's been there, he's done it, and he still probably does. He classifies himself as a libertine and a libertarian. So he's been banned from Twitter. And it's really because he has some degree of power to influence certain narratives. This is a preemptive strike by Twitter, by the way, because they know that Stone, even though he's kind of a borderline creep, although he's an eccentric and somewhat interesting borderline creep, they know that he has inside scoops. They know he has dirt, and he can use Twitter to influence or keep people abreast of information. And information is different than truth. Let's be clear about that. Information is different than truth. Information may have bits of truth inside of it, but information can also be a diet soda, right? I mean, it can have absolutely no benefit for you whatsoever if it's bad information, or if it's misinformation, or if it's disinformation. You may as well not even consume it at that point. So let's not confuse information and truth. They're two very, very different things. Although information can have truth embedded in it, it doesn't always. The two are they are independent of one another, and sometimes they can mutually coexist. What we're looking to do with the internet is we're looking to find truth through information. And we've been doing that for a long time. This is not a new process. People would pick up newspapers and read newspapers because theoretically the newspaper was the fifth estate. And they'd be able to look at something with an objective eye. Journalists used to be people who were borderline private investigators who knew how to write. Well, that doesn't happen anymore. Since we've had this media conglomeration that's taken place, and there's about 4 or 5 companies now that essentially own most of the media outlets in this country. I can't speak for Europe or the rest of the world, but when you have such a concentration of power amongst 4 or 5 groups, it's really easy to control the message across any number of platforms. And unfortunately, that's what's happened. And so journalism has taken a major, major hit as a result of this. And that's why we have alternative journalism. We have alternative researchers. And this is why websites like Reddit and Votes have become popular, because it gives people, to some extent, the ability to take back that power that journalists used to have. Now journalists just take things at face value, like the Trump dossier and this GPS fusion bullshit. I mean, it's incredible what happened. This went right to CNN, and from CNN, this went to the Congress, and these people from GPS fusion were answering questions from Congress. I mean, this is ridiculous, because this report from GPS fusion was completely ginned up. It didn't exist. And it was used as misinformation, disinformation, and it was something that looked like it was information that had truth, that it was laced with truth, but it was anything but that. It was anything but that. And what are the ramifications for this at a social level? I mean, years ago, if we go back into the 50s or the 60s, and really, I mean, those sorts of things happened, and they would happen inside of newspapers to some degree, right? Stories would be moved around, or the narrative would be controlled by the CIA, especially coming out of Vietnam. If there was something about Vietnam that was just a kind of a mind-blowing factoid, like, say, for instance, the Gulf of Tonkin, it would be spun in a certain way by the newspapers at that time, and to some degree the 3 networks, because at that time we only had 3 networks. Very easy to control the flow of information with 3 networks. And it was the CIA that was in charge of editing and making sure that the copy was going to fit whatever narrative they wanted for their corporate or global partners, because that's what the CIA does. But now, there is this opportunity for us to somehow piece things together. But remember, it is not the truth. It is information. And what we're looking for is information to cohere with the truth. This is an essential component that we need to understand, and we cannot confuse the two. So what's happened now with Twitter and Stone is that his information cannot get out there. So he can't run interference. He can't influence whatever is going to happen as a result of Mueller, Manafort. We'll talk about that in the fallout from that. Now, the real problem here is that Twitter is a private business, and they can do whatever they want. And a lot of people have expressed extreme outrage. And the outrage that they express is, well, Twitter allows other people or other groups to say whatever the hell they want and be as outrageous as they want and have no repercussions. They're not going to be banned like Roger Stone because their point of view or whatever it is they're expressing is theoretically progressive or left or socially Marxist or whatever those things are, or maybe part of this kind of greater rising hegemony that the rest of us have to deal with, the political correct hegemony. And so as a result of that, they get to do whatever they want on Twitter. And there's a double standard for people like Roger Stone or Milo Yiannopoulos or whomever gets kicked off of Twitter. Well, guess what? Twitter can do what it wants. And you may be able to say, like a teenager, hey, this isn't fair. Look, Mom and Dad, this isn't fair. Big brother gets to do this. Big sister gets to do this. And you're making me deal with a different set of rules. Well, guess what? Twitter is a private business. It can set those rules. Facebook is a private business. It can set those rules. YouTube is a private business. It can set those rules. The problem with these businesses is that they don't have any kind of competition. And the big challenge is that these businesses are developed now to the point where they're too big to fail. These are economic and technological giants because they've been allowed to develop and metastasize without any competition for the last 10 years and more. Think about that. There was this kind of nascent stage where these technologies appeared, and all of a sudden they were, at that point they were kind of agnostic, and we could drop into them. It's like, wow, isn't this great? I could have a Facebook page, and I could say whatever I want. Well, that wasn't the case for me early on Facebook. I was frozen out of Facebook for periods at a time. They didn't like what I said on Facebook. But I kept plugging on. But we thought, hey, this is fantastic. Twitter, look at this. 144 characters. I get to lay down. I get to lay it down, lay it out, 144 characters. And it is a megaphone. It is a 144 character megaphone. Not only that, but the thing about Twitter that's separated from anything else in history is that you got to tweet directly to somebody that you would never have any kind of contact with, or you could receive their tweets and feel like you were part of their inner circle, or you got to vicariously live part of their lives, right? So you got to see, a 20-second clip of LeBron James eating pizza with his kids. If you had any kind of interest in that, you all of a sudden now you could vicariously project yourself into LeBron's world and eat pizza with his kids. So Twitter was a game changer in a lot of ways because it gave us access to people that we'd never had access to before. Look at Trump. He's really the first Twitter president, whether you like it or not. Obama used Twitter, but not anything like Mr. Gemini, Donald J. Trump. And today he's come out and he's been absolutely blasting on the Manafort piece, which we'll talk about. And he's been blasting about GPS fusion, it's been found that GPS fusion, of course, is ginned up and was an affront to any kind of relationship to the truth at all. It was absolutely ridiculous. And it was really a preemptive strike against the Trump administration, and using that to create a sense of enmity, towards Trump and towards the masses coming from a third party, and painting Trump as being not just somebody who's incapable of being president, but a degenerate. That's what the bottom line of the GPS fusion piece was about. Now they found that, of course, this was ginned up and it was paid for, and all arrows are pointing back to the Hillary Clinton campaign and the Podestas. And what do you do with that now? What do you do with something like that? I give people some credit because they were able to kind of look beyond that to a certain extent, right? Maybe it knocked off a few people who felt as though, who were kind of Trump fence sitters, and decided, well, this is a bit too salacious for me, a bit too risque for me. I'm going to get off this. I'm going to get off this train. But ultimately, I think a lot of people saw through that. But what do you do with this now? Where does it go? Is there any repercussions at all at this level? We've got Debbie Wasserman Schultz still hanging out there with her relationship with the Pakistani keyboard mafia, right? I mean, come on. There's no resolution with that. There's no resolution with Seth Rich, which is probably connected to this. There's no resolution with any of this stuff. None whatsoever. But we have more revelations, and we have more openings, and we have more cracks in the walls that we can begin to look through. So the problem with these businesses, whether it's Twitter or Facebook or YouTube or Google, they have no competition. If they had competition, then they may decide, well, let's play fair. Let's play fair because we don't want to lose a significant amount of users or subscribers to these other platforms because they're going to be more equitable. They're going to show more of a sense of fairness, theoretically. But this is what happens when you have monopolies that metastasize and grow without any kind of challenge in their lives. What do they become? They become these enfants terribles. They become bullies. If you've had your nose punched a couple of times when you're a kid, guess what? There's a good chance that you may not become a bully because you realize that there are repercussions for you, swinging wildly and having no repercussions at all. You realize that somebody out there might be stronger or tougher, and you've got to watch yourself. You've got to make sure that if you go into a conflict, that you are actually kind of aware of what's happening. So we have these enfants terribles, the Googles and the YouTubes and the Facebooks, and they have not faced any kind of external threats. There's no check and balance in this world. And it will be interesting to see if they can break up the monopoly of these too big to fail digital giants. I'm not sure they can at this point. So, our dilemma, again, is if we're trying to find something, if we're trying to find a vehicle that allows us to be expressive in our lives, that allows us to get to some kernel of truth inside of ourselves so that we can show it and illustrate it and express it to the world around us, we're probably going to have to look for other vehicles. For a long time, writing was a vehicle for people to do that. They'd write books, and books would allow people to put ideas together in a cogent and tangible form. And to some extent, even that's threatened now because Amazon has a monopoly on digital publishing. So these are very interesting times that we're living in. And, my sense is that, we should probably use these vehicles while we can. Like, I don't get monetized on YouTube at all. I am in no threat of being demonetized. I can say whatever I want. The way that I do my show, it's a radio show. It's not video as a metric. YouTube recognizes video, prioritizes it over just audio. So I may be in the YouTube ghetto for years unless I decide I want to go video and audio. I could do the stream and I could do the live stream at the same time. And I've been thinking about that for a while, in which case I'll escalate. But there's something about not looking into a camera that I really enjoy. That I can gesticulate, move my eyes right to left or whatever, and not have to just drill you with my eyes. So there's a beautiful anonymity around being behind a mic and just doing radio. So we have the Manafort thing coming down, and what we know about Manafort is that he's had a relationship with Russia and the Ukraine, and they're putting the vice grip on his huevos. That's what's happening, and they're hoping that he sings like a canary, and somehow will either give them information that he's sitting on, or he may even decide to cohere to whatever Mueller and his gang want, cohere and confess to whatever Mueller and his gang want them to cohere and confess to. Right? If you're being tortured, at some point you're just going to tell these people whatever it is that they want to hear. So Manafort is in that place now where things can get very uncomfortable. We don't know at this point. It's too early in the day. We don't know at this point what he's going to be being charged with. It could be income tax stuff. He could lose his bank accounts could be frozen. His property can be seized. All of a sudden, his wife and his kids are having to live in a Motel 6. Now, if these people are pretty sharp, though. And if he's known about this for a while, I guarantee you Manafort has taken his assets and he's buried them. He's moved them around so that some of them cannot be touched. Like, he's had plenty of time to get his act together. But this is what they're going to be. This is what they're going to do. They're going to force him some level to either disclose something that he's not been able to disclose, that somehow may keep the heat on Trump so that they don't have the heat on them, because what they've done is they've gone out of their way to be the aggressors so that we don't turn around and look at them and say, hey, what about Uranium One? Hey, what about these deals that the Clinton administration did? Hey, what about Obama? And Obama okaying these things. They went on the offensive. This is exactly what they did. It's a genius strategy in some ways, but that strategy may backfire on them. So we're going to find out what happens with Manafort. And as far as Roger Stone goes, good luck. You still have Alex Jones, Roger. That's all I can say. Another thing that's come out today is that Kevin Spacey. This is part of the whole Sexgate thing, right? It's Weinstein-gate, the Sexgate scandal. It's all Jupiter and Scorpio as the excess of sex is expanded. It's not the seamy underworld yet, although it could clearly get there. But there's this process that's really interesting that's taking place. And I talked about this I wrote about this on the last piece I put up on my website about Weinstein and what he means, and this whole kind of controlling the truth or controlling the narrative, the revelation of the method, where we get a little bit of something that looks and feels and smells like the truth, but it's not really the truth. Or we're getting our bits and pieces of information that is a simulacra of the truth. So the same thing is happening now with Kevin Spacey. Well, what happened with Kevin Spacey? Anthony Rapp, who is an actor, he's probably most well known for his role in Rent, the long-running Broadway production of Rent, a musical. He went from essentially being a TV and movie actor, he was in Dazed and Confused, to making his fortune and creating a career for himself in musicals. And Kevin Spacey, when Anthony Rapp was 14, came on to him He came onto him. Now, this should be a reinforcement on some level for us to say not only is this happening with these women and people like Harvey Weinstein, and we could spend another hour talking about that, but it's also happening to men and young men. So what does Kevin Spacey do? He comes out and he says, well, I'm gay. I'm gay, and I'm using this opportunity to tell everybody. Is this news? Is this really news? It's kind of like when Joel Grey came out and said he was gay. Number one, did we really care? But is it news? I mean, if anybody's been following Hollywood for any amount of time, they'll realize that Kevin Spacey has been gay. It's nothing that people didn't know already. But now all of a sudden he's using it as his platform to come out. So he's obfuscating this dirty little secret that has come out around him, going after this 14-year-old actor, Anthony Rapp, who's now an adult. Just wait till Mercury goes retrograde in Sagittarius. It's going to be a very interesting time in what comes out during that cycle, which happens really in the first week of December. So tying it all together today, as I piece one, it's really funny. Sometimes this happens, right? I was on Facebook the other day, and Heather Eland, who's interviewed me for Astrolata, she said, I just did an entire video presentation and I forgot to hit record. This happens with technology every now and then. So this is what happened with the first 20 minutes of the show. And so we're 50 minutes in and finally was able to piece together, what I wanted to talk about today. So, bringing it all back to what's useful. Like, what is useful? What can we take from this situation that we can apply to our daily lives? First of all, information is not truth. The truth exists outside of information. The truth exists within you. That is where the truth is a flame and a candle that needs to be burning brightly and incandescent. And that flame and that incandescence can extend itself into information so that we can infuse information with truth, or we can discern through information where there is truth or where there is not truth, or where there are elements of the truth that we can bring into our lives. So let's be clear, information isn't truth. The truth is within you. And that sounds like a cliche, but it's true. It is absolutely true. And how do you find that truth? Well, you unplug every now and then. And you check in with yourself. And you check in with people that are important to you, that can be mirrors of that very personal truth that you evolve and cultivate every single day of your life. And to what extent, and for what reason? Well, to do that brings us closer to what? God. And the eternal truth that is ringing through the cosmos and has been since who knows how long. And as we do that, we can then live from an authentic place in our lives. We can then live from a place where we are beacons, clarions, and as a result of that, even in the most mundane acts of our lives, we can live in a way that is completely congruent, and we become channels for this greater truth to move through us and touch other people, and they in turn touch other people. And the next thing you know, we have this network of the truth emanating through us. So do your best today as we have this moon in Pisces. It's a sleepy moon, I swear to God. I talked about that last night on the live stream and kind of, getting the cobwebs out of our head and waking up Monday morning and being, alert and awake and aware enough to actually hit that button that says record. But do your best today to allow this practice to be a part of your life and be able to disseminate information from truth. And how do we do that? Use your head to discern what's real, your heart to stay open what's possible. I'm Robert Phoenix. You've been listening to 15 Minutes